Ethan Cole had just turned 20, but he felt older than his years. Not in wisdom, he had little of that, at least according to the world, but in weariness. He lived in a town that most people forgot as soon as they passed the Welcome to Ashford sign, a place with peeling paint on every gas station and rust on every billboard. He wasn't popular in school. He wasn't an athlete or the kind of guy who got invited to Friday night parties. He was the boy sitting alone at the cafeteria table with earbuds in, scribbling song lyrics into a battered notebook no one else cared to see. At best, people ignored him. At worst, they laughed when he opened his mouth and stuttered. College hadn't worked out. After one semester of community classes, his grades fell apart and so did his confidence. Now he worked night shifts at a delivery warehouse, stacking boxes until his arms went numb, his mind drifting between exhaustion and dreams he never told anyone. His paycheck barely covered rent for the tiny studio apartment above a laundromat. Every night he walked home after work. The streets were empty, the only light spilling from neon signs that buzzed like tired bees. He looked up at the sky, wondering if anyone else in the world felt like him, completely invisible, like a shadow drifting between buildings. Yet there was a stubborn fire in him. Some nights when he sat by the cracked window in his room, strumming the cheap guitar he'd bought for $50 at a pawn shop, he felt something. A pull. A belief that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't destined to be invisible forever. Still, the world didn't see him. Not yet. What Ethan didn't know was that the next few months would twist his life into something unrecognizable. He would fall. He would rise. And in the chaos of it all, he would find the one thing he had never dared to hope for, someone who saw him, truly saw him, and chose to stay. But tonight, as he placed his guitar against the wall and lay down on his lumpy mattress, Ethan only whispered one line into the darkness. There has to be more than this. And he believed it, even if only a little. The warehouse smelled of cardboard, dust, and tired men. Ethan's shift was nearly over when the foreman shouted, "Cole, you're late with aisle 6 again. Move faster or don't come back tomorrow." Ethan bit down on his frustration. That was the 4th time this week. He wanted to yell to tell the man he was doing the work of 3 people, but instead he nodded and pushed the cart forward. He was too afraid to lose even this miserable job. By the time he clocked out, dawn was creeping over Ashford, painting the sky in faint pinks. He trudged toward home, head down, when a sound stopped him. Music. Not from a phone, but live, echoing through the chilly air. He followed it to the edge of Main Street, where an old brick cafe sat with its door propped open. Inside, a girl was singing. She wasn't much older than him, maybe 19 or 20, standing on a tiny stage with nothing but a microphone and a cracked acoustic guitar. Her voice was raw, unpolished, but alive. The few people inside, truck drivers, night owls, and the barista, listened with the kind of silence that meant they were hooked. Ethan froze in the doorway. He had never seen someone so fearless, pouring their soul into every word. Something in his chest shifted, as though the music reached a part of him he had almost forgotten. When the song ended, the cafe clapped softly. The girl smiled shyly, thanked them, and stepped down from the stage. For a moment, her eyes met Ethan's. It wasn't long, barely a second, but it was enough. He felt like she had seen straight through him, through every wall he had built to keep the world away. Embarrassed, he ducked out before she could say anything. He walked the rest of the way home with his heart racing, guitar chords buzzing in his head. That night, Ethan took out his own guitar. His fingers stumbled on the strings, his voice cracked, but he didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt that maybe the words in his battered notebook weren't useless scribbles. Maybe they were the beginning of something. The girl's song echoed inside him, repeating like a promise. And without realizing it, Ethan had found his spark. For days, Ethan couldn't shake the memory of the girl's song. It haunted him at work, followed him home, and kept him awake at night. He didn't know her name, but he remembered her face, the way her voice cracked with emotion. She had given shape to something he'd only dreamed of, the courage to stand in front of strangers and be heard. Finally, one Friday evening, he walked back into the cafe. His palms were sweaty, his guitar case heavier than it should have been. The sign outside read, "Open Mic Night, everyone welcome." The place buzzed with small-town chatter. Some people were regulars, others just curious, but they all seemed to know one another. Ethan slipped into a corner, clutching his guitar case like a shield. The girl was there too, tuning her guitar at a table near the stage. She looked so natural, like she belonged. Ethan almost turned around and left. When his name was finally called, his legs nearly refused to move. The crowd clapped politely as he walked to the mic. He fumbled with the strap, adjusted it twice, then 3 times. His throat tightened. Hi," he said, his voice barely carrying. "I'm Ethan." A cough came from the back. Someone whispered. Heat flooded his face. He strummed the first chord, but his fingers slipped, producing a harsh twang. A couple of people chuckled. His chest tightened. For a heartbeat, he wanted to run. Then he remembered the notebook, the words he'd written when the world felt like it was crushing him. He closed his eyes, inhaled, and began to sing. His voice was shaky at first, but something shifted halfway through the verse. He wasn't good, certainly not like the girl, but he was honest. Every line carried pieces of him. The long nights at the warehouse, the loneliness, the quiet hope for something better. When he finished, the room didn't erupt in cheers. But it didn't laugh either. A few people clapped. The barista gave him a nod. And the girl? She smiled. Just a little, but enough to steady his heart. Afterward, Ethan sank into a chair, exhausted. His hands still trembled, but for the first time, he didn't feel invisible. The weeks that followed weren't easy. He played more open mics, each time stumbling, each time learning. Some nights, no one listened. Some nights, they clapped out of pity. But slowly, painfully, he began to grow. The struggle wasn't just the music. It was rent overdue, managers yelling at him, nights when he doubted if any of this mattered. But each time he considered quitting, he remembered the stage, the chords, the brief moment when someone listened. And in that flicker of light, he found reason to keep going. It was a rainy Thursday when Ethan first met Mr. Whitaker. The cafe had emptied early, leaving only a few stragglers sipping coffee and scrolling on their phones. Ethan was tuning his guitar, trying to fix the notes that kept buzzing wrong. Frustration made him pluck a string too hard, producing a sharp, grating sound. "You're holding it all wrong." Ethan jumped. Behind the counter stood an older man, hair streaked with gray, wearing a faded denim jacket and a kind, sharp-eyed face. "I couldn't help but hear you. You have something, kid, but you're hiding it from yourself." Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. I don't know what I'm doing." Mr. Whitaker chuckled. "Most people don't. That's the point. Listen, if you want to get better, you need guidance. Not just songs, not just chords, but understanding why you play. Music is about life, not just notes. For the next hour, Mr. Whitaker showed him small techniques, how to hold the guitar so it didn't fight him, how to find rhythm in silence, and how to let the words breathe instead of rushing through them. But more importantly, he asked questions. Why do you write? What are you afraid of? What do you want people to feel when they hear you? Ethan stumbled over answers, but the old man didn't laugh. Instead, he nodded as if each awkward sentence mattered. For the first time, someone cared about the why behind his effort, not just the mistakes. Weeks turned into months. Ethan started showing up at the cafe every evening after his warehouse shifts. Mr. Whitaker pushed him, challenged him, and occasionally scolded him. But slowly, the nervous, invisible boy began to stand taller. The open mic nights became less terrifying. He experimented with his voice, wrote songs that were painful, raw, sometimes funny, sometimes hopelessly sentimental. Each song carried pieces of his life that he had kept buried. One night, after a particularly messy performance, the girl from before, her name was Lily, he had finally learned, approached him. "You're getting better," she said, smiling. "I didn't think you had it in you." Ethan laughed nervously. "I have a good teacher." She raised an eyebrow. "I can see that. But maybe you don't need him forever. You just need to start believing in yourself." Her words struck him harder than any chord. He realized that Mr. Whitaker had given him skills, but Lily was giving him belief. For the first time, he didn't feel like he was floating invisible through life. He was starting to grow into someone the world might notice. By the time summer rolled in, Ethan was no longer the invisible boy he had been at the warehouse. People at the cafe recognized him. Some even came early to hear him play. His songs were sharper, more confident, and for the first time he began to feel a flicker of pride. He still worked nights at the warehouse, still counted every dollar, still worried about bills. But the music, his music, gave him purpose. Each performance, each small audience, was a step away from the shadows and toward someone he was learning to trust. One Friday, Mr. Whitaker approached him with a grin that didn't need words. "There's a local festival next month," he said. "They want new talent. You should enter." Ethan's stomach dropped. A festival? On a stage? With hundreds of people watching? He felt the familiar knot of fear. I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. "You'll never feel ready," Mr. Whitaker said. "That's the point. You go, you play, you see what happens. That's how people rise, and rise he did." Ethan poured every ounce of himself into practice. He stayed up late writing lyrics, adjusting melodies, pushing his voice further than he thought it could go. When the day came, he walked onto the stage, heart hammering, palms sweaty. But this time, when he strummed the first chord, he didn't think of fear. He thought of every small moment that had brought him here. The nights alone with his notebook, the rainy walks past the empty streets, the words of Mr. Whitaker, the smile of Lily. The crowd responded. Not wildly, not with fanfare, but with attention, with smiles, with claps that made Ethan's chest swell. For the first time, he realized people were listening. Not just hearing, but really listening. After the set, Lily approached him, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "You killed it," she said. "I knew you had it in you." Ethan grinned, almost unable to believe her words. I think I'm finally starting to see it too." Success didn't stop at applause. A local cafe owner offered him a weekly gig. A few people shared his songs on social media, giving him his first small audience beyond Ashford. And yet, with every triumph came a new challenge. Self-doubt never disappeared completely. There were nights when the warehouse job, money worries, and the fear of failure pressed down harder than ever. But Ethan had learned something invaluable. Every step forward, no matter how small, was a victory. And each victory carried him closer to the life he had always imagined. A life where he mattered, where he was seen, and where love was not just a dream. Autumn came to Ashford with crisp mornings and golden leaves that scattered across the sidewalks. For Ethan, the season felt like a promise, one he hadn't known he was ready to keep. Lily had become a constant presence in his life. At first, it was small things, sharing a table at the cafe, swapping song ideas, laughing over burnt coffee and missed chords. But soon, those moments began to stretch longer, linger warmer. She challenged him, teased him, and made him confront parts of himself he had been avoiding. One evening, after a late rehearsal at the cafe, Ethan and Lily walked through the quiet streets. Their breaths formed little clouds in the cold air, and for a moment, neither spoke. "You've changed," Lily said softly. Ethan chuckled. "I don't know if I'd call it change. Maybe growth?" "Maybe," she said, smiling, "but it suits you." Her words stirred something deep inside him, a mixture of hope and fear. Could someone like her really see him, truly see him, and still choose to stay? Their first kiss came unexpectedly, under a flickering street lamp outside the cafe. It was shy, tentative, but electric. Ethan felt a warmth he had never known, a sense that he belonged, not just on stage, not just in the cafe, but somewhere in someone else's world. Love didn't make life easy. There were moments of tension. Lily had ambitions too, and her world sometimes collided with his. There were nights when rehearsals, open mics, and part-time jobs left little room for each other. But through it all, they grew together, learning patience, trust, and the quiet joy of shared dreams. Ethan also discovered that love, like music, demanded honesty. He opened up about his insecurities, his past failures, his fears of never being more than invisible. Lily listened. She never judged, never offered empty encouragement, only presence and sometimes laughter. Their bond became a source of strength. When he faced a difficult audience or stumbled through a new song, he thought of her smile, the way she leaned in to hear every note. She became his anchor, a reminder that success wasn't only applause or recognition. It was connection. It was being seen. It was love. By the time winter hinted at Ashford's horizon, Ethan felt a quiet certainty he had never experienced. He was no longer invisible. He had music, he had growth, and most importantly, he had Lily. Spring arrived in Ashford with a brightness that felt almost unreal after the long months of struggle. Ethan could feel it everywhere, the warming air, the budding trees, even in the rhythm of his own heartbeat. He was no longer the hesitant, invisible boy wandering empty streets. He had grown, stumbled, fallen, and risen, and now everything was about to change. The opportunity came unexpectedly. A regional music producer was scouting talent at a nearby town's festival. Mr. Whitaker had pushed Ethan to attend, saying, "Some doors only open if you knock hard enough." Ethan had practiced relentlessly, every chord and lyric refined until it felt like breathing. When he walked onto the stage, the crowd was larger than any he had ever faced. Hundreds of eyes watched him, strangers buzzing with curiosity. For a moment, panic gripped him, but then he saw Lily near the front, her fingers intertwined, eyes shining with belief. And in that instant, he knew he wasn't alone. He strummed the first chord. This time, it didn't tremble. His voice rang clear, confident, carrying the story of his life. The lonely nights, the warehouse shifts, the small victories, the music that saved him, the girl who had shown him love. By the final verse, the audience was captivated. Applause erupted, not polite or tentative, but full, real, and resounding. Ethan's chest swelled, not from pride, but from the knowledge that he had finally stepped into the person he was meant to be. After the performance, the producer approached him, eyes bright. "Kid, you've got raw talent and something else. Heart. I want to sign you." Ethan felt his legs go weak. He glanced at Lily. Her smile was radiant. She stepped forward, holding his hand. "You did it," she whispered. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Studio sessions, small tours, local media features. Ethan's music began reaching ears far beyond Ashford, but amid the chaos, he never lost what mattered most. The people who had lifted him, Mr. Whitaker, Lily, and even the quiet strength he had found within himself. One evening, after a long day of recording, he and Lily sat together on the rooftop of his apartment building. The city lights stretched below, a soft glow against the night sky. "You're really here," Lily said softly, leaning against his shoulder. "I am," Ethan said, closing his eyes, "and I never want to be anywhere else." For the first time, he truly believed it. He had found success on his own terms. He had found love that was real, grounding and thrilling all at once. And most importantly, he had found himself. The boy who once thought he was invisible had become a man who could face the world without fear. The journey hadn't been easy. It had been messy, painful, and full of doubt. But every struggle, every failed performance, every lonely night had led to this moment. A life filled with music, love, and the quiet certainty that he mattered. Ethan smiled, breathing in the spring air, feeling the warmth of Lily's hand in his. The world was big, bright, and full of possibility, and for the first time he was ready for all of it.